Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. When one has fully entered the realm of love, the world, no matter how imperfect, becomes rich and beautiful. It consists solely of opportunities for love. Soren Kierkegaard, Works of Love. Our guest today, the one and only author, Finding Honor, friend of the Culture Matters podcast, mentor to countless 2020 Vision for Success coaching. Christine Beckwith is back to talk about chapter 13, the Heartbreak Toll of her book, Finding Honor. Thank you for coming back, my friend. I'm excited to unpack this chapter, and that's why I picked this quote from Kierkegaard. When one has fully entered the realm of love, the world, no matter how imperfect, becomes rich and beautiful. It consists solely of opportunities for love.
Hi, thanks for having me back. It's great to be back. We're doing such great work with this book. This book is so profound. I love that we're unpacking it, and I can't, this year, it's on the top 5 of my to-do focus. Finding Honor is getting ready. It's being packaged up as we speak and being sent to multiple book competitions and stuff. And so I'm bringing it, with me to places, and I'm doing private work and workshops with it. And it's just, I continue to receive this book more than any. I've written 5, I'm writing my 6th. I receive the most heartwarming letters about this book. This is where I get the long written message and so on and so forth. And this chapter is right in step with its depth, which is to talk and unpack, what is the price tag for loving. um it's interesting, relationships, and what you fall in love with too, because I think in the chapter I talk in many facets about my falling in love with things and my learning that on the other side, of love, there's pain, there's a toll that we pay for heartbreak. And we can be heartbroken by things we see day to day. We can be heartbroken by things that happen in our business. I've been heartbroken many times in many ways and many depths. And at some point, I probably retreated and protected myself. And I've noticed in my own relationships, if somebody kind of threatens my security in this area, that I will pull back and protect myself and put my walls up. I mean, it's also cliche, right? Um, in my lifetime, we always seem to remember the last heartbreak we had, and we always say this is the worst heartbreak I've ever had. I've never been so heartbroken. But I know now, all things considered, and watching myself recover from the heartbreak of a lost job, of a relationship. And I share in this book that, my sister was dying when I was writing this book. And I was close to my sister, and so I'll just say, not to go too dark, I don't remember writing about how I felt while it was happening at all. And she died 3 days after the book finished. And the book was to be published 27 days. It had a public publishing date that we had been reverse engineering to try to make it a bestseller and have the first day be on the top of the Amazon charts. And I hurried up at the permission of my editors to add an additional chapter at the end dedicated to my sister. And the interesting thing is I had to do a read through of this book before it published. So one of the last things you do as a writer is you do a read through. And because you write chapters and you're adding them and editing them and all this stuff, and then when it's a full body of work, the editors make you sit for a full read through, and they suggest that you read the entire book end to end within 48 hours to get a succinct experience from your own writing. Because when you do that as a writer, it's no longer compartmentalized. And I'm down a rabbit hole a little bit, but tying it back to the Heartbreak Toll message, I was dying from my sister's loss. So I had just completed this huge accomplishment, which is like what I thought and is the best body of work I've ever done in my lifetime in my writing. And you know what my writing means because it's above all things. And that's what I want my legacy to be, is my books. And then I was experiencing the greatest loss I'd ever experienced, the greatest heartbreak I'd ever experienced. And I didn't really know how to save myself, and I was drowning. And because a week after she died, I had to do the read through in its totality, I stumbled across this paragraph in this chapter as I'm doing the read through. And I had said previous to getting here to my boyfriend, Corey, I didn't know she was going to die this soon. I didn't know she was this close. I would have told her so much more. And he didn't say much at first, but as the days rolled on and I kept saying that, he said, Christine, you knew. And not only did you know, you were the one walking her out. Like, you were spending the time with her in the middle of the night. You were taking her anguished, heartbroken phone calls as she was dying. And there's a reason you didn't tell her everything. There's a reason you didn't give her a big goodbye. And that was because you didn't want to make her sad. Like, you had enough wherewithal to know she was already facing imminent death, and you were able to just keep her and use conversation loving. And you talked about, and we did, every time we were together, we just talked about memories and things and all that stuff. So I get to this chapter in the read through, and it says, as I write this, I am anguished and riddled with internal strife and excruciating pain. Raw, empathetic emotion is threatening to take me under. This transferred empathetic pain of loss is not directly my own. My elder sister is in hospice, dying from a broken heart, and she is losing her battle. I have seen how love can destroy us. The loss of my sister's marriage is not my story to tell. She was not ready for it to end. Its ending sent her into depression. Depression has slowly but surely robbed her of joy in her life. Ripping joy out of her heart has left her lonely, and loneliness and worry has made her sick. And the sickness has drove her to the darkest of darkest places. And that place is destroying her. And out of respect for her, I will not give intimate details of her demise. Suffice it to say, her declining physical health and mental wellness is on a downward spiral. We cannot stop. And all I can do is be there for her. Love can destroy us. I have experienced it. I too have been destroyed by losing love, and I have been shattered inside after being left by someone I love. I learned the hard way to respect the power of love and love lost. And I say this to you because I'm emotional speaking about it. Because I really, until I did the read through, I didn't realize I had written a book that was going to save myself. I wrote the book for other people to save themselves through some of the anguish and the stuff that I had gone through. But I knew my sister was dying. I did know. He was right. And in that moment, sitting in my living room doing the read through, not only did I talk about her dying once, but I talked about her dying 6 times. And so the reason there is a chapter in this book called The Heartbreak Toll is because in our lifetime, everybody's chasing success, everybody's chasing money, everybody's chasing life. We're all willing ourselves to some better place, future place. When we're working, we can't wait for the weekend. And so we count the clock down, and then we get to the weekend and we can't wait to get to dinner tonight. And then, it's the next thing. It's the vacation that's looming 2 months away. It's the trip away. It's whatever. It's when I get to this point, I'll be successful. When I get this trophy, when I get this award, when I do this thing. And we're surviving life, and all that's happening. But it's not, life isn't giving us a lot of time to deal with, all the things that are happening in around us. I went through a divorce while being at the height of my career, most visible part of my career. I had a newborn baby, when my divorce hit, under a year old. And I was the senior vice president of sales for H&R Block, which was the biggest accounting firm in the world. And I was seated in an executive position and I had a spotlight on me. And people watched, what I was doing. They were watching when the company was getting closed even. And so, I think for me to give a memoir of my life and to give a success guide to human beings that are trying to figure out, where are we going? What are we doing? How are we getting there? How are we going to be when we get there? What are the life lessons that are going to help calibrate us into a place? And so this book, the best way I can describe it on the back of the book is that I explain that this book to me is not just about finding success, but it's about finding happiness. And if you're trying to find the combination there within, then you really have to take a look at what is keeping you from getting that, because a lot of us are chasing mirages. I chased a long road of things, material things and mirages and when ifs and when I got theirs. And so again, I think just survival of all of this and how you get there is important. I know that's more, I always give you more than you ask for, but
What advice do you have for someone in status that has people looking for them for guidance, answers, that's found themselves in the midst of a divorce or
yeah. I mean, I just give yourself the time to process it. I'm glad if there had to be a time for my sister to go, that I'm this age and I have all this wisdom in and around how to save myself. Because, again, I loved her more than I knew. I knew I loved her. If you measure it by pain, my love for her was immeasurable. And I think that having people come to me, I attract a lot of people that are going through a lot. It's not going to surprise you. Writing these books, being who I am, putting myself out into the universe the way that I do in a very vulnerable way, I attract, I don't want to say stray cats because it's got such a negative connotation, but I attract a lot of wandering souls in the universe that are trying to save themselves. And so there's a part of the book we're going to get to, um, titled The Healer, where I come into this revelation. You taught me this. You used this word before I ever thought of it. And when I was trying to figure out, like, I'm a teacher, I kept saying, I'm a teacher, I'm a teacher. And one day you said, you know what you are? Well, you didn't say it this way. I don't want to put words in your mouth. In the conversation we were having, you said, you are a healer. And I just remember it sticking with me. And I know that sounds powerful and it may be like, everybody wants to heal people or help people or whatever. I think there's a big difference between being there for people and then seeing people to healing. The difference between those things are that I sit in the pain with people. And when people come to me with their story, I feel what they're feeling on many levels. And because of that, I kind of know who I need to circle back to today to check on in my world. Like, I see the hurt, I see the pain. There's people I don't even know that I work when I was at the top of these sales companies. People passed me in the hallway who I kind of knew who that person was by name and face, but I didn't know them. And I could see something was happening, and I would find myself writing the person an email and saying, I noticed when you were walking the hallway today, you look like you were upset. Is everything okay? And the next thing I know, they'd be sitting in front of me telling me their life story. And I don't know where that really lent to production, but people will ask me sometimes where my true success came from and my happiness. And I want to tell you, when you give yourself that way to people, and then you do have a cause and it's tied to a business, and you've got to get everybody to march through a storm and believe in you and trust you, you only get that because of who you are to those people. People aren't going to put their life in danger, their livelihoods at stake, and all of these things. Great wars are won by great leaders. And I don't know that I consider myself a great leader. I just think because I'm a healer and I care and I'm an empathetic soul and I've given solutions for people to survive their own heartbreak toll, I think I have created a world where when I fall down, people come running, and I know that to be true. And I don't fall down a lot. I recently had a moment where I had to step back for a few days and I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't say, hey, everyone, I need to take a break, for a couple of days. I got this or that going on. I just sat down hard and couldn't get back up. And I had a lot on my mind at the time and a lot going on. I wasn't physically feeling great with some stuff that I was battling. And legitimately, everyone on my team noticed because I wasn't myself and I canceled some meetings and I was quiet and I wasn't making phone calls and I wasn't sending emails and I really wasn't returning texts. And they gave me the time and space. They all just kind of let it happen. Like they knew I had gotten knocked down in a way that I couldn't get back up or something. They also know that when I get back up, watch out, right? And so when I held a meeting 4 or 5 days later and I was prepared to lead again, I sounded stronger. And yet I can tell that I received some of the most beautiful messages. Like, listen, we're going to be okay. They were encouraging me, and I'm their leader. And so I think if I had advice for people that were reading Finding Honor and following us along this journey of this memoir and want happiness and success, you've got to follow the path of this book. You've got to start with the self-awareness and the tests and the integrity tests. And you've got to ask yourself, am I an integral person? Because I catch myself every single day having unintegral thinking. It's easy to hate on people that haven't been nice to you. It's easy to, feel a certain way when people don't show up for your parade. Um, it's much harder to correct your own thinking and just ask yourself, why am I thinking this way? What has this person done to me? Like, why am I holding hate in my heart? Or why am I doing this or that? And so I do think we're in control. The name of this book, Finding Honor, The Journey to the Truth, it's a journey. It's our life's journey to figure ourselves out. I'm still figuring myself out. I still have things happening to me where I'm learning about myself. And I find it both an intriguing walk and a meaningful one. I hope I figure it out before the end of my life. Part of me believes that I'll still be searching and I'll be curious and learning because I had great aunts that were in their 80s and they were librarians and teachers. They remained curious. I can remember my 92-year-old aunt, and she was so excited to hold a new book in her hand. And if you can be like that at an age like that, I mean, I think that's amazing. I think it's really amazing.
You say on page 105, love is incredible in its power and reach. Love has shown me it can span past a physical break. Long after a relationship has ended, I still love some people, even though everything logically stands to tell me to be wise and let go or stop loving. It endures. It endures because once found, it is truly unconditional. Love is a fuel whose light never extinguishes or fades when in its purest form.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's really true. And I think you have to be careful of like the people I've ever been maddest most at in my life are the ones I've loved the deepest when hurt. And I've seemingly carried, a lot of anger because anger is the other side of, your hurtness. And then somewhere in this book, I explain um how I get to a place where I begin to dissect the feelings that you hold through anger and hate. And if you uncover enough and search enough, you're going to discover when you peel the layers back that in the core of your hatred is love. And that sounds so weird, but it's absolutely true. And so there's some people that I really been hurt by. It's kind of wild because I watch a lot of crime shows, and last night I watched one, and the woman that was speaking was allowed to speak to her daughter's killer. I used to think these people were crazy when they would stand up there and say, I forgive you. And because I looked at forgiveness as a gift to the killer. And I have a chapter in here that's called Forgiving Your Killers. And I finally realized that forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you, and it's about what you allow to stay in your heart and what's internal to you and what robs you of peace. And peace is such a rare commodity. I never sought peace when I was 25. I mean, opposingly, I turned the music up, let's get crazy. Today, in this form of my life, I turn my radio off when I get in the car. If someone else was in my car, I drive in silence. I like to sit in silence. I like to read in the morning with nothing on. Maybe a candle flickering somewhere. And I just think that when you kind of seek peace, which is really remarkable, and I know a lot of young people get this. It took me a long time, and I think older people definitely get it, but you'll find your way back to love, you know? All of the people I have hated in my life, I once loved. And so finding my way back to understanding that that's what's at the core of that. That doesn't mean you have to put people back at your table. It doesn't mean anything more. I will also say this. I have discovered sometimes in trying to go through the forgiving process that I did not want to hold love and forgiveness in my heart for certain individuals. And I think what I've discovered in that is that I did not love that person. And that isn't anchoring me to that person. I have an indifference to it. And so that's truly the meaning of this whole chapter, touche. The deeper the love, the deeper the toll, the deeper the work you have to do. And so I kind of wish I loved less people because it's been a lot for me. It's been a lot to walk around with this great big heart. I get hurt easily in work. I get bonded to things and people, and yet that's part of who I am. And that's part of what people know me as. People will give me two reviews. They'll say, she's a hard ass, she's a badass, because I can be very sharp-tongued and strong-willed. And then people will say, she's got such a big heart, she's so caring. And I do think people that really understand me understand those two things live together. If I get sharp-tongued with you, it's because I care and love you. I do not spend time on people I don't care and love. But if you're going in the wrong direction and I loved you or love you, you'll probably hear something harsh out of my mouth if I think that you're going to hurt yourself or are hurting yourself. Take that as a compliment. And for most people that understand that is our bond, if they feel that way about me, they'll receive that direction really well. I find that people that don't love me back the same way I love them when I'm giving them the tough advice, those are the ones that struggle with my advice the most.
Hmm.
You know.
If you're listening to this episode, I want you to please pick up your copy of Finding Honor, Your Journey to the Truth, Your Journey to the Truth if you read it. Right?
That's right.
Please follow Christine and please share this podcast. The more you share it, the more of these we can do. Christine, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this didn't change me. Learning that I, hurt so badly and telling people how to survive their pain and understanding that the price tag of love is for people like myself is, this. It hasn't changed me. It's actually made me appreciate who I am and how I operate. I have a better expectation now in my lifetime of what I'm giving and what I'll eventually get. It's kind of scary knowing how hard I have felt the last year and a half after my sister passed to know I've got to weather, more of this in my lifetime with friends and family and loved ones and close ones. And so I know more of this is coming. And I know where I can go to get the advice. Like I will read this book again. And I often have quotes that are being pulled out for these contests that the book is going into. And it piques my interest to go back and read the chapter. And it really has become an anchor for me, to keep me on a good path. So Thank you for pointing people to it. I really would love to hear from you too. I answer all my own messengers on all social medias. Nobody does that but me. So if you pick up a copy and you're connected to me in one of the many ways that I'm out there, send me a note about what resonates. Drop a review, please, on Amazon. And that's the greatest gift you can give me is read what I've written and put out into the world.